What's up, everybody? Emperor John Kill 30 with a little bonus Transformers video for you guys. And it's, even though you're just going to see gameplay from Fall of Cybertron, it's just as prevalent for War of Cybertron as it just Fall of Cybertron. Now, I'm going to be talking about both games together. And I just wanted to say, what made these Cybertronian, let's just call it the Cybertron duology, because unfortunately we never got a completion with a third game, like we should have. But what made these the Cybertron series of games really good? I mean, there's been other good Transformers games, or some that have been not so good, and some that are good. I will bite the bullet and say the very first Michael Bay Transformers game was good because it was an open world, fully destructible. That was cool. And then I do like these games because it's more of, you're getting what Transformers fans... Ugh, sorry about that. I had a burp. These games, Fall of Cybertron, War of Cybertron, and Fall of Cybertron, was the biggest love letter to the fans. It was beautiful. I remember when these games first came out. I played them when they first came out. My memories with these Cybertron games are so powerful because they were also one of the very few games that I was starting to express into being in online gaming more. Even though the online in these games have been shut down and can only be resurrected through certain PC mods and everything as such and such like that, here, the storyline to these two games, it's like the first game and this game, it truly felt like one big story split into two games because the story is so grand. The story is so... How do I say this? These two games told the perfect, and I don't say that often, this is the perfect interpretation of Transformers. Faithful, accurate, but modern. In this game, or in these two games, you played both factions, the Decepticons and the Autobots. You understood where both sides were coming from. This game really dives into the lore, shows you, not telling you, but it shows you through the world what Cybertron is going through, what this war is doing. And if you watch the 2018 Bumblebee and you look at that opening Cybertron war sequence, this instantly pops into your head. Like I've always stated, this should be a film. These should be a film. Whether in one part or two parts, we need a Cybertron movie. I love these games dearly. I loved the single... And here's the thing. I watched Transformers... I didn't get into it with G1 or anything previous. I know, that might be heresy to Transformers fans. I got in with Armada, Transformers Energon, Transformers Cybertron. I got it at the Unicron battles. I got into it with that version of Transformers. And that also reminds me of... Like, these games also invoke those images and feelings. There's a lot that they could still do with this series. You could still do a third game. That's what they don't understand. Or like, I don't know where the rights are to do these games, or is the studio behind it willing to come back to this franchise? I know there's another game coming out, another Transformers game coming out that I think is made by the people who did this game, but it's going to be a multiplayer-based game, and people can say what they want, but Transformers games that have had multiplayer in them have been nothing but fire. Getting to the fact to I think it was in... Yeah, I think it's in both of the Cybertron games, if I remember correctly. You could create your own Autobot and Decepticon. And you unlock different pieces and parts, and you could truly feel like a soldier on the battlefield fighting other players. I really would want them to take inspiration from Battlefield and do that with Transformers. A Battlefield Transformers game would be so fucking insane, but so epic in its own right. Unique, different Transformers, but that's a different topic for another time. This game right here, especially out of the two, I know a lot of people, War for Cybertron got this series started, these two Cybertronian games, but Fall of Cybertron, oh my god, Fall of Cybertron took the first game, and the first game was already, it was in a way, I'm going to say, it was perfect. The first game was perfect. How do you build on perfection? How do you strike lightning in a bottle twice? I didn't hesitate. When this game was announced, I pre-ordered it on my PS3. I had it for PS3 pre-ordered. I didn't hesitate. Did I regret it? Nope. Why? Because this game really did live up to its promise. And that's hard to say with games today, that they need to live up to their promises. And this game did that in spades. It has a very similar aesthetic to G1, but with a modern, at least at the time, it was a modern take on G1. You can identify who's who. You can actually see which Autobot is which Decepticon is which. They were able to retain their looks without getting too far out there or too far away from what fans recognized. You know, when you play as Optimus, besides the voice of Peter Cullen, it's Optimus. When you play Bumblebee, you know it's Bumblebee. When you play Jazz, it's Jazz, Sideswipe, uh, so on. You know who you're playing as. Jazz, you understand every kid. That Grimlock, which Grimlock has one of the best sequences in this game, to be honest, in my personal opinion. But I love, my favorite parts of this game are these Cybertronian war base levels. Like, I love that. I love being on the front lines. I love fighting my way through the Iacon cities. You know, the streets, the roads, seeing the Transformers utilize both their Cybertronian forms and their vehicle forms. I love the character of Metroplex, even though he only appears in this game, by my understanding. I don't know if he appears anywhere else, but in this game, even though he is just there as a big brute, when it's his time to go in this game, when he has to basically die, you're like, yo, you are the best fucking Autobot. You are a kaiju Autobot, and you will go down in memory. He's basically the Godzilla of this game. Every character, you feel emotion for these characters. Hell, even when you play as the Decepticons, it's like you feel so good fighting them as the hero, but then when you get to play as the villain, it feels so liberating. Especially when you play as Megatron. Megatron, you could clearly see, even though everybody has a very similar, they all control the same, just with different weapons and abilities. Megatron, somehow, you could feel the power. You could feel the difference with every Autobot and Decepticon in this game. They all feel unique, despite being behind this third-person camera and being able to use the same kind of blasters and weapons. They all have different abilities that make them unique. And as the story progresses and goes on, you really feel like, is this G1 the video game? Like, is this Transformers G1 the video game? Because that's what it feels like. Everything we've ever seen or heard of the Cybertronian War came to full fruition in these two video games. And I think that's what made it so great, and still great to this day, why people remember these games fondly. They not only gave you what you wanted, they did more than give you what you wanted. Because they could have easily just made this a generic Transformer storyline just with the Cybertronian background. But no. They went ahead and basically said, no, we're going to do this right. And High Moon Studios were being forced to make the live-action Transformers games based on the Bay films, which alone was like, you're wasting their talent. And of course, that anyone to blame is for Activision to blame for this. They had a golden opportunity. And of course, they decided to butcher it in favor of doing generic sequels or Transformers-based games or movie-licensed Transformers games. Instead of continuing with something original, you had the fans' support. The fans would have continued to support the series if you would have just continued to build off of each game going forward. Because it's rare in the industry today. Very rare. Where we have a video game, let's say the first one, like War for Cybertron. Beautiful love letter. Beautiful game. We were like, alright, a Transformers game. Yo, I can get with this. It invokes my childhood. Alright, I'm gonna back this up. People get worried when there's sequels now. You know, people are like, how are you gonna build off perfection already? How are you gonna build off a really great game that the first game was? Then, Fall of Cybertron happened. And Fall of Cybertron took what everything the first game did and just went 100. They were like, yo, we really hit the home run with the first game. Let's continue to do that. Let's continue. And unfortunately, what is considered the third game in the Cybertron series, but no real fan counts it, is Rise of the Darkspark. Even though I hate what it did to this series, I could have accepted it as a standalone spin-off. Because that was the problem with... Because Rise of the Darkspark plays just like the Cybertronian games. So, if the controls aren't broke, don't fix it. Plain and simple. If what ain't broke, don't fix it. But trying to fuse the Michael Bay verse with the actual childhood Cybertronian type of stuff that we have, it didn't gel well because they were trying to pass it off as the third game. If it was just a spin-off, if they had the third game and then they decided to do a multiverse spin-off where having both generations crossover, then it would have probably been accepted more. It probably would have been accepted by the fans, but no, trying to make Rise of the Darkspark the third game and not finishing the story that ends on a cliffhanger in this game, not being able to finish it is just a huge slap in the face. But you can't blame High Moon for that. You have to blame the bosses that are above them, which is Activision. Because Rise of the Darkspark reeks of Activision. You could tell the difference in quality between War for Cybertron and Fall of Cybertron. I really wish somebody could just finish that story. Get that story completed. Or remaster. I don't know why they didn't remaster the first game with the second game, because you can't buy the Fall of Cybertron anywhere anymore unless you emulate it or have the original copies. Activision took them down, but luckily I still had my copy. And Fall of Cybertron will always be a reminder of a much simpler time for gaming, especially for me. It was a much simpler time. It was much more, when online gaming was really starting to take off, especially on the consoles. I really wish that they didn't also shut the multiplayer down for this game. All I have is its campaign. Do I constantly play the campaign? Yes, I do, because I love it so much. But I wish that in the future, if they are to do another game like this, or reboot the two games, keep the same story but change the graphics and, make it as beautiful as it was the first time, then maybe we can get a third game. My hopes are tempered for Transformers Reactivated, but I'm going to give it a chance. Be sure to like, subscribe, favorite, and I'll see you next time.